Hey friends, happy Friday. Many blessings to you. We're in the 12th week of Ordinary Time, reading the book of Genesis and the Gospel of Matthew. I'll give you a reflection. There's a link to the readings on the side. If you have not read the readings, I invite you to prayerfully read them after the reflection and then turn off your screen, spend a little bit of time with the Lord before you move on to other things. In the Gospel, we've just finished the Sermon on the Mount. It's a little bit awkward because instead of reading that yesterday, we had the feast day of John the Baptist, but we had the instruction about how, or we would have had the instruction for, those who build their lives on my teachings are like those who build houses on the rock. And then we have the end of the sermon, and now we're back into some action. So we were in the sermon for a couple weeks. Now we're going to see Jesus. And we have a very familiar sort of a story, which is a healing of a leper. It's interesting. We get different sorts of presentations from the different gospel writers about this power of Jesus. And here, the person with this disease of leprosy says to Jesus, "If you desire, you can make me clean." And Jesus says, "I do will it." And so, especially here, Matthew is showing the teacher coming down from the mountain with great power. By his word and by his will, things are happening. People are healed. That desire to conform our lives into the will of God, trusting, as painful as it might be at times, that the will of God is for our good and for our benefit, and that Jesus reveals that. A little bit of the first reading. I kind of struggled with where to go with this first reading. Today and tomorrow are both of them promises of the child to Abram and Sarai, the child Isaac. Yesterday we would have had the story of Ishmael, which is maybe a story of Abram and Sarai trying to take the plan for the future into their own hands, and Abram having a child through the maid, Hagar. Now today we hear about God who's going to bring the promises, and then tomorrow we're going to hear a bit more of a familiar sort of a narrative story. At the beginning of this story in Genesis, we have God who gives the command, this is how you're going to keep the covenant. You're going to practice male circumcision for all of the males in your household. I just want to point out, focus in on the fact that this is absolutely tied in to the blessing of the peoples, right? The blessing of the nation. And so you have to, in the mind, practice male circumcision in order to keep the covenant and to receive the blessing. We're just coming out of the Easter season, right? And we were reading the Acts of the Apostles. One of the big challenges of that first generation of Christians was, how are we faithful to the tradition of our ancestors and yet still open to the world and share the good news of Jesus Christ with non-Jewish people? And one of the big issues was this one, male circumcision. And so just to allow that to be in our hearts, I still know that I don't fully understand how painful that sort of an argument and decision and division and discernment would have been in that first generation of Christianity. But we get a reading like today, and it just helps me to be mindful of that again, how weighty that is to have a tradition behind you that you know, that you love, that you respect, but also that the Lord is inviting change and openness. I was thinking about it personally for us. One of the challenges is when God works powerfully in our lives through a form of prayer or a retreat experience or through other sorts of ways, and it feeds us and it nourishes us for an extended period of time, days, weeks, months, years. And we keep coming back to the well, and God continues to bless us from that. And then things change. And then we return to that form of prayer, and it no longer connects us to God. And God allows us to experience desert and drought and desolation and distance and the pain of separation. Right? And that's a place that many of us have been in one way or another. And mindful of the way that sometimes God calls us to encounter God in new ways, in unexpected ways, in ways that are really, really painful and difficult and arduous. I know I'm kind of moving, right, from this story of male circumcision into the first generation of Christians, into our own experience of prayer. But you know, God is God, and God is greater than all of us and any of our stories, and even this world, and even this universe. To be people of surrender to that great cosmic mystery, and to trust, even when it's painful and when it's hard, that God is a God of love and care and relationship and intimacy and closeness to us. So I might be rambling. That is an occupational hazard for us. I hope that there might be something there to pray into. The person with leprosy who asks Jesus for healing and that divine statement, I do will it. Or perhaps some of this of God, faithful to the covenant God who gives commands, first generation of followers of Jesus trying to figure it out, maybe our own experience of prayer and how the Lord is, inviting us into new ways, different ways. Okay, happy Friday. Lots of weighty stuff, plenty of good stuff to chew on in prayer. God's blessings to you. Maybe especially today, we are mindful of those who are in desolation, who feel like God has abandoned them. Maybe we hold them in particular in prayer. God bless.